They told me not to come to my own daughter's wedding because I didn't look important enough. So I made one quiet phone call that night, and by sunrise, the entire $480,000 wedding was gone. And when they demanded to know who destroyed everything, I walked in and let them read my name on every contract. Before I continue, let me ask you something, quietly. If you're still listening, consider subscribing to this channel, and tell me where you're listening from. Every story I share carries a piece of my life, and knowing you're here makes telling it easier. I live in a small house on the west side of Dayton, 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. Nothing impressive, nothing meant to be noticed. The furnace clicks too loud in winter. The porch light flickers when rain comes down hard, and the floor by the sink still creaks if you step just right. I've known about that creak for years, kept meaning to fix it. Life always gave me something else first. Most mornings I wake before sunrise, not because I need to anymore, but because my body remembers. 40 years of loading docks and early shifts leave their mark. I shuffle into the kitchen. Kettle on. 2 scoops of grounds. No sugar, just a little milk. My hands aren't pretty now. Thick knuckles. A scar across my thumb from a strap snapping in '89, but they still work. That matters to me. I sit at the table by the window. Same chair I've used since my wife passed. The cushion dips where I lean. I always lean left. Across the street, Mrs. Donnelly walks her dog at exactly 6:12. Every morning, the dog pulls. She pretends not to notice. Life settles into patterns when you let it. Around here, people know me as Walter Reed, retired freight supervisor, drives an old pickup. Still mows his own lawn. They wave when I pass. Sometimes they stop to talk. No one ever looks twice. And that's exactly how I wanted it. What they don't see, what my daughter never saw, was the quiet exit I made years ago. When I sold my logistics firm, I didn't throw a party, didn't buy a condo in Florida, didn't change my life at all. I folded the money behind a holding company, kept my name off everything, then went right back to living small. Not because I was ashamed, because I was afraid. Afraid that if my daughter knew, she'd stop seeing me as her father and start seeing me as a solution. Her name is Lena. As a kid, she was all elbows and opinions. Smart, curious, always asking why. I raised her alone after her mother died, packed lunches, sat through dance recitals, worked double shifts to keep the lights on. Some nights, I came home so tired I slept sitting up in the chair. But I never missed her birthday. Not once. When she graduated college, I cried in the car. Didn't tell anyone. I was proud of her. I still am, or I was. She met Evan Clark 2 years ago, at a networking event. That should have told me something. Evan talks fast, always has a phone in his hand, always between calls. He wears confidence like a jacket, looks good from far away, starts to itch if you get too close. The first time he came to my house, his eyes scanned the room like a realtor's. He didn't mean to. He just couldn't help himself. I offered him coffee. He declined. Said he was cutting caffeine. He asked what I did before retirement. I told him the truth, just not all of it. Logistics, I said. Warehouse work. Management. He nodded politely, the kind of nod people give when they've already moved on. I saw Lena watching him, checking his reactions, making sure he approved. That hurt more than I expected. Still, I kept quiet. When they announced the wedding, it sounded less like joy and more like a press release. Venue. Guest list. Sponsors. The Brighton Grand Hotel downtown. Crystal chandeliers. Valet parking. I smiled, said congratulations, wrote a modest check for the engagement party. What I never said, what I never planned to say, was that every major deposit, every luxury upgrade, every angel contribution came from me, through a company Evan loved to brag about, a benefactor he admired, a name he trusted. He never knew it was mine. I thought helping quietly was the safest way to love. The week before the wedding, I pulled my old suit from the closet, navy blue, a little tight in the shoulders, worn at the cuffs. That suit buried my wife. It was good enough to walk my daughter down the aisle. I pressed it carefully, hung it by the cabinet knob, stepped back. For a moment, I felt calm. I pictured Lena as a child, barefoot in the yard, laughing at nothing. I thought about the future, grandkids, maybe. Then my phone buzzed on the counter. Evan's name lit the screen. I answered with a smile I didn't know would be my last, because that quiet, ordinary night, that small kitchen, that old suit, that steady calm was about to break. And I didn't know it then, but that silence was the last real peace I'd feel for a long time. "Walter," Evan said. No greeting, no warmth, just my name, clipped and careful. The kind of voice people use when they've already made up their mind. I leaned against the counter. The kettle was still warm. Steam lightly fogged the window. "What's wrong?" I asked. I meant Lena. I always meant Lena. There was a pause, a breath he didn't want me to hear. "We've been finalizing arrangements," he said. "Guest flow, seating, optics, optics." The word didn't belong in my kitchen. "Okay," I said slowly. Another pause, longer this time. "We have investors flying in," he continued. "Board members, a city councilman, people who matter. People who matter. So we need to keep the ceremony focused." I felt my hand rest against the counter's edge. The laminate was chipped there. I'd noticed it 100 times. Never thought it mattered. "Focused how?" I asked. He exhaled, impatient now. "Walter, don't take this the wrong way." That's when my chest tightened. "We think it's best if you skip the ceremony." I didn't answer right away. The refrigerator hummed behind me. A car passed outside. Life kept moving. "Skip the ceremony," I repeated. "Yes," he said quickly, relieved almost. "You can come later. After. The reception starts around 10. He cleared his throat. "There's a service entrance near the kitchen. Staff will let you in." Service entrance. I looked down at my hands, thick fingers, old scars, hands that built the ground he was standing on. "You don't want me walking my daughter down the aisle," I said. "Well," he hesitated. "It doesn't really fit the image." Image. The word landed hard. I swallowed, didn't rush myself. "Does Lena know about this?" I asked. Silence. Not a dropped call. Not a bad signal. A silence that answered everything. "She's emotional right now," Evan said finally. "Weddings do that, but she understands the bigger picture." The bigger picture. This is about our future. Our. "Did she agree?" I asked quietly. "That I'm not important enough to be seen?" His tone sharpened. "Walter, you're being dramatic," he snapped. "This isn't personal. It's strategic." Strategic. I closed my eyes. I saw Lena at 8 years old, holding my hand at her mother's funeral, her fingers shaking, her grip tight. I opened my eyes again. "So I wait until 10, I said. "Come in through the back. Smile. Say hello once the important people leave." "Yes," he said. "That's the compromise." Something shifted then, not anger, something colder. "Don't call Lena tonight," he added. "You'll only upset her." And then he hung up. Just like that. I stood there for a long time, didn't move. The suit still hung from the cabinet knob. The fabric caught the light. I reached out, ran my fingers along the sleeve. Cheap cloth. Worn thread. Honest. I didn't shout. Didn't throw the phone. I poured a glass of water. Took one slow sip. I wasn't heartbroken. I was done pretending. I walked to the small desk in the hallway. Opened the drawer. Inside was a yellow notepad, a pen, and a business card. Martin Hale. Attorney. The only man who knew everything. I dialed. He answered on the second ring. "Walter? Everything ready for tomorrow?" "No," I said. My voice surprised me. Steady. Flat. "We need to stop everything." There was a pause. The kind that weighs consequences. "Stopping everything means everything," he said. "I know." The venue, the vendors, the funding, his company. Yes, and Lena will feel this. I know. I looked back at the suit. They only want important people, I said. So let's remind them who decides what importance costs. Another pause. Then, quietly, understood. I want it frozen tonight, I said. Every line, every contract. No delays. It will be messy, Martin warned. By morning, I said. There won't be a wedding. I hung up. I folded the suit carefully, placed it back in the closet. Then I made a sandwich, washed the plate, turned off the lights. I went to bed early, slept deeper than I had in years. At dawn, I woke without an alarm. The sky was pale, calm. My phone was already buzzing. Missed calls, voicemails stacking up. I didn't listen. I made coffee, sat down, and as the sun rose, the world they built on my silence began to fall apart. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was still coming, because once respect is withdrawn, it doesn't beg to return. And that's when I knew I would not stay silent. The phone kept vibrating on the table. I let it. The coffee cooled in my mug. I didn't touch it. Outside, the neighborhood woke up like any other day. A trash truck groaned down the street. A dog barked at nothing in particular. Someone fought with an engine that wouldn't turn over. My world stayed still. I finally picked up the phone around 8. 23 missed calls. Messages stacked tight with panic. From Evan, from Lena, from numbers I didn't recognize. I didn't open any of them. Instead, I walked through the house, slowly, as if I were seeing it for the first time. The dent in the hallway wall from when Lena slammed her bedroom door at 16. The crooked bookshelf I built myself, solid even when it leaned. The photo by the window. Her graduation day. She's smiling wide. I'm just outside the frame. I was always behind the camera. I sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress sighed under my weight. For a moment, doubt crept in. Maybe I went too far. Maybe I should have called her first, explained. But then Evan's voice came back to me. Service entrance, optics, and Lena's silence. I let the doubt pass. By noon, the truth was everywhere. The Brighton Grand canceled the ballroom. Catering trucks turned around mid-route. The string quartet never unloaded their cases. Credit cards declined. Deposits reversed. Emails bounced back unanswered. Guests arrived dressed for celebration and found locked doors and confused staff whispering behind desks. I wasn't there. I didn't need to be. Around 2 in the afternoon, Lena called again. This time, I answered. Dad, she said. Her voice was sharp, not frightened, angry. What did you do? I closed my eyes. I made things honest, I said. You ruined everything, she snapped. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? Humiliating. The word sat heavy in my chest. They're laughing at us, she said. At Evan, at me. I waited. Didn't interrupt. Why didn't you just stay home like we asked? You could have avoided all of this. I spoke slowly, carefully. You didn't ask, I said. You decided. That's not fair, she shot back. You don't understand how things work. I looked at the photo by the window. I understand exactly how they work, I said. I just didn't know I raised you to agree with it. She went quiet. Then her voice came back colder. This was never your money to control. That one landed. I stayed very still. I worked nights so you could sleep safely, I said. I sold pieces of myself so you'd never worry about bills. She cut me off. This is emotional blackmail, she said. You think your sacrifice gives you the right to humiliate us? Us. Not me. Not family. Us. I'm hanging up, she said. Don't contact me again until you're ready to fix this. The line went dead. I held the phone for a long time. Then I set it face down on the table. That night, I didn't turn on the lights. I sat in the dark. Rain tapped the windows softly. Steady. Patient. I thought about Lena as a little girl. How she used to crawl into my bed during storms. How she'd whisper, "Don't let go." I wondered when she stopped believing I wouldn't. Sleep came late. I got up, went to the kitchen, opened the drawer. Inside was an old envelope, worn at the edges, her name written on it. The night she came to me shaking. Debt she couldn't explain. A man who disappeared. I paid it. Quietly. Protected her. And in return, she signed papers she never read, not as punishment. As protection, so no one could ever use her again. I hadn't planned on remembering that night. But betrayal has a way of reopening old doors. By morning, Evan's name was everywhere. Funding pulled. Meetings canceled. Promises exposed. His company collapsed faster than I expected. Confidence doesn't hold weight without money underneath it. Still, none of it felt like victory. Victory is loud. This was hollow. I missed my daughter. But I also knew something had changed. Something that couldn't be undone. I stood by the window as dawn returned, watched the light touch the street. And that's when I began to think very carefully. Not about revenge, about truth, about timing, about what silence could still do. Because patience, I realized, isn't weakness, it's restraint. If you're still listening, thank you. Stories like this remind me that patience isn't weakness, it's quiet strength. Some nights, even now, I catch myself whispering her name. Not in anger, but in disbelief. I didn't rush anything after that. I learned long ago rushing is how you ruin things. So I went back to routine. I mowed the lawn, replaced the porch bulb that flickered for years, tightened the loose hinge on the back door. Small repairs steady the mind. Every evening I sat at the desk in the hallway. Same yellow notepad. Same pen. At first, I didn't write names, just dates, amounts, connections. Truth has a shape if you let it form slowly. Evan's company wasn't built on strength. It was built on reflection. Shell accounts stacked on loans. Loans stacked on promises. Promises stacked on reputation. And reputation is lighter than people think. I made a few calls, not many. One to Martin. One to a compliance officer I trusted. One to a man who still remembered who helped him when no one else would. No threats. No pressure. Just questions. Is this structure solid? Who actually guarantees this line? What happens if funding pauses? Temporarily. I listened more than I spoke. Silence makes people talk. Days passed. Then weeks. Evan's voicemails changed tone. Anger softened into fear. Fear turned into pleading. I never answered. Lena sent one message. Short. Controlled. You've made your point. I read it once. Then folded the paper I'd been writing on and slid it back into the drawer. This wasn't about a point. It was about balance. Late one night, I opened the filing cabinet in the garage. The old metal one that smells like dust and oil. Inside were records I kept not out of suspicion but out of habit. Contracts, signatures, amendments. One document sat on top, stamped, notarized. The contingency clause. The one Evan never read. It gave me the right to withdraw support if the company's public conduct materially misrepresented its values. Optics, I thought. Funny word. I smiled then. Just once. This wasn't revenge. It was alignment. That's when the title phrase came back to me. The one people would repeat later like a warning they wished they'd understood sooner. They told me not to come to the wedding. I didn't plan to show up angry. I planned to show up undeniable. Timing mattered. The Brighton Grand scheduled a closed-door meeting. Investors, partners, damage control. That's when Martin arranged my attendance. Not announced. Not hidden. Just present. That morning I chose a different suit. Charcoal gray. Still modest. Still mine. I drove myself. Parked 2 blocks away. Walking steadies the heart. Inside the lobby, voices lowered as I passed. No one recognized me. That was fine. When the meeting began, I took a seat near the back. I listened. Evan spoke too loudly. Confidence trying to outrun a shadow. Then Martin cleared his throat. "Before we continue," he said, "there's a clarification we need to address." He looked at me. "Mr. Reed, would you care to explain?" I stood slowly, adjusted my jacket. "I won't take much time," I said. "Only enough for the truth." Folders slid across the table. Pages turned. Eyes widened. Ownership lines. Funding paths. My name finally visible. A murmur spread. Then nothing. Silence. Evans stared at me. His mouth opened, closed again. I met his eyes. No anger, no triumph. Just clarity. "This isn't punishment," I said calmly. "It's consequence." Then I sat down. The room never recovered. That evening I walked home instead of driving. The city felt quieter somehow. The stage was set. All I had to do now was wait. They had no idea that silence can build walls stronger than words. The truth didn't arrive loudly. It settled. That was the first thing I noticed. After the meeting, no one raised their voice. No one slammed the door. They simply stopped returning Evans' calls. Emails went unanswered. Meetings quietly disappeared from calendars. Doors closed without making a sound. I stayed home. I cooked soup from scratch. Chopped onions slowly. Let them soften instead of burn. Patience tastes better that way. 3 days later, Evan showed up at my house. I saw his car through the front window, parked crooked. Hazard lights blinking like an apology. I didn't rush. I finished drying the plate in my hands. Folded the towel. Set it down carefully. Then I opened the door. He looked smaller. Same suit. Wrinkled now. Confidence gone from the seams. "Walter," he said. His voice cracked halfway through my name. I stepped aside. "Let him in." He didn't sit, just paced the room. "I didn't know," he said quickly. "I swear. If I had." I raised my hand. "Not in anger, just enough. You knew what mattered to you," I said. "That was enough." He stopped pacing. "They're freezing everything," he said. "The investors, vendors, even my parents' accounts." I nodded once. "That happens," I said. He stared at me. "Please," he said. "I'll fix this. I'll apologize. I'll tell Lena." I looked at him fully then. A man trained to perform remorse, not to feel it. "Sit," I said. He did. I opened the drawer and took out the envelope. The one I avoided touching for years. I placed it on the table between us. "What's that?" he asked. "A reminder," I said. He opened it. Read. Color drained from his face. The structure. The signatures. The clause. "You own everything," he whispered. "No." I corrected gently. I protected it. He looked up. "What do you want?" he asked. I leaned back in my chair. "I want you to tell the truth," I said. "To the investors, the press, Lena." His jaw tightened. "And if I don't?" I waited. Outside, a bird landed on the porch rail, tilted its head, then flew away. "Then the silence continues," I said. He nodded slowly. That night, statements were released. Funding officially withdrawn. They called it strategic misalignment. The next morning, Lena came. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes red but dry. "I protected myself," I replied. "That wasn't your wedding," she said. "It was mine," I exhaled. "You didn't want me there," I said quietly. "You made that clear." She looked away. "He lied to me," she said. "So did you," I replied. "About me." Her breath caught. "I thought you were weak," she admitted. "I thought I'd outgrown you." I nodded. "That happens," I said. "But it doesn't excuse forgetting who carried you when you couldn't stand," she cried then, quietly. "Not for the wedding, for the distance." She reached for my hand. I let her touch it, briefly. Then I pulled back. "Not yet," I said. Weeks later, the investigation became public. Financial misrepresentation, family involvement. Evan's parents were charged. His name appeared in filings. One night, he tried to break into my garage. The camera caught everything. The crowbar, the panic. He was arrested 2 blocks away. In court, he told them everything, including things Lena never knew. The sentence wasn't long, but it was final. I didn't attend. When the news broke, Lena called. "I don't have anyone," she said, her voice smaller now. "I know," I said. "Can I come home?" she asked. I looked around the living room. The chair by the window. The photo on the shelf. "I love you," I said. "But saving you again would break us both." There was a long silence. Then she whispered, "I understand." And in that silence, I finally felt free. Because sometimes the loudest moment in life is when you choose to say nothing at all. These days, my mornings move slower. I wake when the light reaches the wall, not when my body jolts me awake. I make coffee, sit by the window, watch people hurry past without needing to follow. Lena writes sometimes, short messages, careful words, updates about work, about learning how to stand on her own. I read every one. I don't always answer. That choice still weighs on me. But it also keeps me steady. I learned something late in life, something I wish I'd understood sooner. Love isn't proven by how often you rescue someone. Sometimes it's proven by knowing when to step back and let them feel the ground for themselves. People ask if I regret it, if I wish I'd done things differently, if I feel victorious. I don't feel victorious. I feel finished. They told me not to come to the wedding. At the time, that felt like rejection. Now I see it differently. It was a doorway, one I needed to walk through alone. Respect isn't demanded. It isn't bought. And it isn't inherited. Respect is earned quietly and lost just as quietly. When Evan looked past me, when Lena stayed silent, they showed me who they were becoming. And when I stayed calm, when I chose patience over reaction, I finally showed myself who I had always been. I still love my daughter. That hasn't changed. But love doesn't mean shrinking so others can feel taller. It doesn't mean giving up dignity to keep the peace. Some evenings, I sit on the porch and listen to the wind move through the trees. I think about my wife, about the years that shaped me, about the man I became when no one was watching. I sleep well now. Maybe justice isn't loud. Maybe it isn't fast. Maybe it doesn't clap when it arrives. Maybe justice is simply this, being able to sit in silence without feeling small. That's the peace I earned. That's the truth I carried for years before I finally let it speak. If this were your story, what would you have done? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe if you'd like to hear more quiet truths like this one.